Stay calm, lead strong. Master your mind and conquer any crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a simple question. What do you do when everything starts falling apart? Do you scream? Do you panic? Or do you pause? Because in that pause, just for a moment, you find the difference between failure and focus. When I started my journey, I thought the smartest person in the room would always win. Later, I realized the calmest person in the room usually ends up leading it. Why? Because calmness brings clarity, and clarity drives action. Life is unpredictable. Business is unstable. Markets go up. People let you down. Plans fail. You can't stop the storm from coming, but you can train your mind to stay still in the middle of it. Let me tell you a story. A few years ago, we faced a crisis, a big one. Everyone in the team was stressed. People were shouting, running around. One young man came to me and said, "Sir, everything is going wrong. What should we do?" I said, "Get a coffee. Sit down. Let's think." He was shocked. He expected strategy. I gave him silence. Because here's the truth, when your mind is on fire, you can't solve anything. You can only burn everything faster. Now you may ask, how do you train your mind to be calm? Simple answer, every day. Not when the crisis comes, but before. You train by facing small problems with big patience. You train by listening more, speaking less. You train by not reacting to every insult, every bad email, every market dip. Calmness is not about being passive, it's about being powerful without being loud. Look around you. The most valuable people in any organization are not the fastest talkers or the loudest thinkers. They are the ones who don't panic when the ship shakes. They steady the wheel. So I leave you with this, when life pushes you hard, don't push back blindly. Stand firm. Breathe. And move smart. Because your mind, trained well, becomes your greatest weapon not in war, but in peace. In the rush of daily life, we are constantly making decisions, big and small. Some shape our careers. Others affect our families, our health, or our future. And yet, most of these decisions are made not in silence, but in noise, emotional noise, mental noise, external distractions. The truth is, in this chaos, very few people truly think. Most just react. And that's where everything begins to fall apart. A calm mind is not just a peaceful mind, it's a sharp mind. Calmness creates a space between what happens and how you respond. In that space lies clarity, the ability to separate what matters from what doesn't. What's urgent from what's important. And what's emotional from what's logical. That clarity is your biggest competitive edge. Consider this, imagine you're leading a team, and a major project suddenly goes off track. Deadlines are missed. Clients are unhappy. Your phone is blowing up with messages. What happens in most companies? People start blaming. Stress spreads like a virus. Decisions are rushed. Mistakes pile up. Why? Because the situation is allowed to control the people instead of the people controlling the situation. Now imagine a different leader. Same problem. Same pressure. But instead of yelling or panicking, they take a deep breath. They gather the facts. They talk less and listen more. They give their team confidence, not fear. In this moment, they become the calm inside the storm. They create the clarity needed to solve the problem, not amplify it. This isn't about being slow, it's about being still enough to see things as they are. The calm mind doesn't jump to conclusions. It doesn't get hijacked by emotion. It observes. It reflects. And then it chooses the best course of action. Not the fastest, but the smartest. Many people confuse calmness with passivity or detachment, but it's the opposite. Calmness is active discipline. It's the mind saying, I won't let this moment own me, I will own this moment. Think about the best chess players, pilots, surgeons, or entrepreneurs. They train themselves to remain composed in high-pressure situations. Why?
Because they understand that stress fogs the brain, but calmness sharpens it.
You can't solve complex problems with a confused mind.
And confusion often comes from emotional overload, anger, fear, ego, urgency.
Calmness acts like a filter.
It clears the emotional dust from your mental lens.
Suddenly, what seemed overwhelming now feels manageable.
What looked like a disaster becomes just another challenge to solve. That's why clarity doesn't come from doing more, it comes from stepping back and doing less but thinking better. Some of the worst business decisions are made when leaders feel they have no time to think.
Ironically, that's exactly when you must pause. When the pressure is highest, the need for clarity is greatest. And clarity will never come if the mind is spinning with noise.
Training your mind to be calm isn't about avoiding pressure, it's about transforming pressure into precision.
It's about being able to ask the right questions in the middle of a crisis. What are we missing? What's the root cause? What's the next best move? These are the kinds of questions that come not from panic but from poise. The real power of calmness is that it allows you to lead.
Not just others, but yourself.
Most people are led by their impulses. Calm people are led by their insight. And insight only becomes visible when the water is still. Think of your mind like a lake. When it's agitated, you can't see below the surface. But when it's calm, the reflection is clear. You see things not as you fear them to be, but as they truly are. Life doesn't always ask for your permission before it tests you. It throws challenges, setbacks, disappointments, sometimes all at once. But here's something most people overlook. What happens to you is often less important than how you respond to it. Your reaction becomes the real story.
And in most situations, your reaction defines the outcome more than the event itself. Two people can go through the exact same hardship, losing a job, facing criticism, encountering failure, and come out with completely different results.
One gets bitter, the other gets better.
One gives up, the other grows. The difference isn't the situation, the difference is the response. We live in a world where people are trained to act fast, instant replies, instant opinions, instant judgments.
But fast isn't always smart.
The first reaction is often the worst one because it's driven by emotion, not awareness. Fear, anger, insecurity, these emotions are natural, but when they drive our decisions, they can turn a small problem into a much bigger one.
Think of a time you sent a message you regretted. Spoke words you couldn't take back.
Or made a decision just to feel in control again.
Those moments of reaction often leave long-term consequences.
That's the danger of impulsive response. It may feel satisfying in the moment, but it rarely serves your future. On the other hand, those who pause, who give themselves space to think, can change everything. Because when you respond from awareness instead of impulse, you create possibilities.
You take control of the narrative.
You stop being a victim of the situation and start becoming a designer of the outcome. This applies in business, in leadership, in relationships, in conflict.
Let's take a common example, criticism.
No one likes to be criticized.
The immediate reaction is usually to defend or retaliate. But what if instead you paused? What if you listened calmly, not to agree but to understand? Sometimes inside that criticism is a hidden opportunity for improvement. A blind spot revealed. A direction corrected. That's something you'd never see if your reaction was to fight back. Or imagine this, you're leading a team and a serious mistake happens. The easy response is blame. The common response is frustration. But the wise response is to first understand, how did it happen? What systems failed? What can be learned? In that moment, your reaction sets the tone. If you explode, people shrink. If you engage with calm authority, people grow. Your reaction can either close people or open them up.
It can build fear or build trust.
We often think strength is shown through control over others.
But real strength is shown through control over yourself.
Emotional intelligence is not about suppressing emotions, it's about managing them. A controlled response isn't weak, it's strategic.
It doesn't mean you tolerate everything, it means you choose the best way to handle it.
One of the greatest advantages you can have in life is the ability to stay non-reactive in a reactive world. When everyone else is triggered, you observe. When everyone else is rushing to judgment, you stay grounded in facts. That doesn't mean you move slowly, it means you move intentionally. There's a big difference. And the beauty of this truth is that it gives you back your power. Because even if you can't choose what happens around you, you always have the ability to choose what happens within you. The situation may belong to the world, but your response belongs to you. And in that response lies your leadership, your maturity, and your potential to change the direction of the entire experience. In every challenge, there is something hidden. An angle that's not visible at first glance. But most people never get to that point of discovery. Why? Because the moment a problem shows up, panic takes over. When the mind is agitated, it looks only for escape, not insight. But a calm mind doesn't rush. It stays steady. It asks deeper questions. And because of that, it sees something that others miss, opportunity within the obstacle. This is not about being overly optimistic or pretending problems are gifts. It's about seeing with clarity instead of fear. When everyone around you is reacting, a calm mind observes. It doesn't deny the difficulty, it acknowledges it fully, but it also keeps enough distance to analyze, adapt, and create. The biggest innovations, the strongest leaders, and the most remarkable breakthroughs often come not in easy times but in pressure-filled moments. But only those with calm minds can tap into that. Why? Because while others are focused on what they can't control, calm thinkers focus on what they can. Imagine you're part of a company that suddenly loses a major client. Panic sets in. People start talking about cuts, failures, blame. It feels like a collapse. But a calm individual, instead of spinning in fear, sits down and studies the situation. Maybe this loss exposes a dependency issue. Maybe it reveals a need to diversify. Maybe it opens a path to new markets that were previously ignored. The calm mind asks, what can we learn from this? What can we build because of this? The obstacle doesn't disappear, but it transforms. History is filled with these moments, entrepreneurs who started new ventures during recessions, artists who created their best work in isolation, scientists who made discoveries under pressure. The calm mind isn't distracted by the noise of fear. It's busy looking for patterns, leverage points, lessons, and openings. It doesn't freeze, it functions. This ability isn't based on talent, it's a skill. Anyone can train their mind to stay calm. It starts by pausing instead of panicking. By noticing the story your emotions are telling you but choosing not to follow it blindly. Fear often tells you the worst-case scenario. A calm mind doesn't ignore that. It prepares for it, but it also searches for the best-case potential. That balance is where strategy is born. In any difficult moment, the question is, where is the power shifting? Where is the opportunity hidden? Calm minds are tuned into this because they're not blinded by anxiety or urgency. When your mind is calm, you can zoom out. You gain perspective. You realize that what seems like an end might be a redirection. What looks like rejection might be a form of protection. What feels like a limitation might be pushing you toward creativity. Even on a personal level, obstacles often reveal truths we've been avoiding. A missed promotion may open the door to a path we didn't consider. But to see that, your mind needs to be quiet enough to listen. We often assume that reacting fast makes us efficient, but reacting without thought can make you miss the real opportunity. The calm mind doesn't mean the passive mind, it means the precise mind. It chooses where to focus energy. It doesn't waste time fighting things that can't be changed. It uses that energy to change what can be changed, and in doing so, creates value where others see only problems. When people see someone who stays calm under pressure, they often assume it's just their nature. They were born that way, they say. Or I could never be like that. I just don't have that kind of mindset. But that belief is not only untrue, it's limiting. The truth is, mental calmness, discipline, and clarity are not traits you inherit. They are skills you train. And like any skill, they don't come from talent, they come from time, repetition, and effort. Think about physical fitness. No one expects to run a marathon without months of preparation.
You train your body step by step, mile by mile, until strength becomes second nature.
The mind is the same. You don't develop calmness by reading quotes about peace. You develop it by going through pressure and choosing how you handle it again and again. In a world that celebrates quick success, the idea of slow mental training can feel boring. We want instant answers.
We want productivity hacks, morning routines, motivational videos.
But the mind doesn't transform in an instant. It responds to what you consistently feed it. Just as your body reflects your daily habits, your mind reflects your daily patterns of thought. If you constantly give in to stress, complain, overreact, and rush decisions, your mind becomes wired to operate from a place of tension and chaos. But if you practice stepping back, breathing through difficulty, questioning your thoughts, and choosing stillness over panic, those responses become your default. Not because you're born with a calm mind, but because you've trained it to be one.
One reason most people struggle to train their mind is that they confuse awareness with change.
They say, I know I overthink, or I know I get angry too easily, as if recognition is enough. But knowing your weakness isn't the same as strengthening it. It's like a person who knows their arms are weak but never lifts a weight. Nothing changes unless the effort is consistent. The process of mental training is not always dramatic. It's subtle.
It happens in the moments you choose not to send that angry message.
When you sit in discomfort instead of numbing it. When you listen instead of interrupting.
When you observe your thoughts instead of acting on all of them.
Each time you make a better choice, you rewire your brain just a little. And over time, those little shifts become lasting strength. The mind, like any muscle, resists at first. It doesn't like being challenged. It prefers familiar patterns, even if they're harmful. That's why the beginning of mental training often feels frustrating. You fall back into old habits. You lose patience. But that's part of the process. Falling is not failure, it's feedback. The key is to stay with the training even when the progress feels invisible. It helps to remember that every difficult situation is an opportunity to train. You don't need a perfect environment, you need presence. A delay in traffic can be a lesson in patience. A rude comment can be a test of emotional control. A business setback can be a training ground for resilience. You don't wait for life to be calm to train your mind. You train your mind in the middle of the noise so you can stay steady when it counts. This kind of training doesn't need years of silence in a monastery. It needs 10 minutes of stillness in the morning. 5 seconds of pause before responding. Small acts of mindfulness that accumulate over time.
That's how real change happens. Not through talent, but through tiny repeated acts of mental discipline that compound into real inner strength.
Leadership is not just about vision or strategy, it's about emotional presence.
People don't just listen to what leaders say, they feel how leaders respond. In difficult times, a leader's tone becomes the team's temperature. And nothing stabilizes that emotional climate more than a leader who remains calm under pressure. Calm leaders don't just make better decisions, they build stronger teams. In the chaos of uncertainty, people look for something steady to hold on to. If the leader becomes part of the chaos, anxiety multiplies, confusion spreads, and trust weakens. But when the leader stays composed, grounded, and clear-headed, it sends a signal: we're not out of control.
We're adapting. We've got this. That one signal can shift an entire team's mindset. Calmness in leadership doesn't mean silence or slowness, it means intentional energy.
It means knowing when to speak, when to listen, and when to simply breathe before responding.
Teams take emotional cues from their leaders. If a leader reacts with fear, blame, or impulsiveness, that behavior becomes contagious. But if a leader holds space, staying steady in their body language, voice, and decisions, confidence begins to take root in the group. This is especially visible in high-stakes environments. Picture a crisis unfolding. A system has failed. A client is furious. Deadlines are collapsing. In that room, there's pressure. Eyes are scanning for guidance.
If the leader starts shouting, assigning blame, or panicking, even the most capable employees begin to second-guess themselves. But if the leader stands still, asks the right questions, and gives clear next steps with a steady voice, something shifts. The team starts to believe they can figure it out.
Confidence is not just about ability, it's about emotional permission. Calm leaders give their teams permission. Permission to stay composed. They model behavior that says we don't need to have all the answers right now. We need to think clearly and move together. That creates psychological safety, the space where people are not afraid to speak up, try, and fail because they trust the reaction won't be punishment but perspective. People often think leadership is about charisma or authority. But true leadership is emotional influence. When people feel emotionally safe, they perform better, think more creatively, and recover faster from setbacks. And nothing builds that safety faster than a leader who can remain calm, especially when things go wrong. This doesn't mean pretending things are fine when they're not. Calm leadership is not denial, it's discipline. It means acknowledging the reality but not letting fear drive the response. It means showing urgency without panic, seriousness without drama, and clarity without coldness. That balance builds respect, and respect is the foundation of team confidence. Calm leaders also give their teams a long-term view. In difficult moments, it's easy to focus only on what's broken. But a calm leader reminds people of what's still working, of the strengths they bring to the table, and of the progress that's already been made. This sense of perspective helps teams stay resilient. They learn not to see obstacles as dead ends but as challenges to navigate together. And perhaps most importantly, calm leaders create a culture of reflection. They don't just move from crisis to crisis, they create space to pause, to learn, and to grow. When a leader asks, "What can we learn from this?" instead of, "Whose fault is this?" it transforms how the team approaches every future problem. That mindset builds confidence that goes beyond tasks. It builds confidence in the process, in the team, and in the leadership itself. In the end, the real advantage in life isn't speed, talent, or even intelligence. It's the ability to remain calm when it matters most. Because calmness is not weakness, it is control. It is strength under the surface. It allows you to see clearly when others can't, to choose wisely when emotions run high, and to lead with intention instead of impulse. Calm minds don't avoid problems, they navigate them. They don't deny pressure, they transform it. When you train your mind to be calm, you stop being at the mercy of the world around you. You no longer react, you respond. You no longer survive, you lead. And this kind of mental discipline is not reserved for a few. It's not based on talent, it's built through patience, through practice, and through the small daily decisions you make when things don't go your way. So whether you're building a business, leading a team, or simply trying to grow as a person, make calm your foundation. Make stillness your strategy. Because in every situation, especially the toughest ones, how you show up within determines what unfolds.
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more exclusive success tips. Thanks you very much.